Good afternoon, everyone. We're so glad that you are here for this wonderful event on our square here in Hickory. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Western Piedmont Symphony, I welcome you. I hope you enjoy this afternoon. My name is Martha Hill, and I'm the Exec Director for the Western Piedmont Symphony. This afternoon's concert is sponsored by the City of Hickory, the Visitors Bureau, Fry Regional Medical Center, HSM Solutions, and we are being live streamed this afternoon by CenturyLink and the Jackson Group Interactive. Please give these people a round of applause for their support. As you may already know, we have a 50-50 raffle taking place today. We hope you'll buy tickets. They are 1 ticket $2, 3 tickets $5, 7 tickets $10, and we will cut that off after the intermission and have the drawing at the end of the concert today for a 50-50 cash win. Thank you. Those are all of our announcements this afternoon. Enjoy.
Good evening. Welcome to our concert. The theme of our concert today is nature and music, although starting out with the national anthem, well, I guess it does actually have something to do with nature. Of course, 200 years ago and about 2 weeks ago, there was a battle at Fort McHenry after the British had, it was sort of a detour they made after burning our capital in Washington. They decided to go up to Baltimore and see if they could burn down Baltimore. It didn't work out quite so well with Fort McHenry, thank goodness. And, so we're able to gather today with the Stars and Stripes rather than the Union Jack, and I think that all in all, that's probably a really good thing. By the way, if you're interested in a little history about our national anthem, when Congress was considering in the early 1930s what song would be chosen, and the Star-Spangled Banner was certainly the favorite, they asked the Librarian of Congress to do some research, which he did, into the Star-Spangled Banner, Hail Columbia, and I think at least one other tune as well. And of course, being an honest man and a scholar, Oscar G. Sonik, the Librarian of Congress, told them quite clearly that it was based on a song written by the British composer John Stafford Smith. And originally the words were "To Anacreon from Heaven." It was a tribute to imbibing, and if you'd like to do that, there's a place right over here where you can get a beer. So that would be well within the traditions of the Star-Spangled Banner. By the way, Congress was very miffed when they read Mr. Sonic's book. They tried to fire him. So, you know, it's not the latest thing in politics to shoot the messenger. They were doing it back in the 1930s, too. Next, we're going to play for you a piece by an Austrian composer, Franz Joseph Haydn. Since the theme is nature and music, we thought we would start off with a piece that, well, I don't think we're going to get the sun to come out from behind the clouds, but this is part of the opening of his Symphony number 6. He wrote a series of 3 symphonies, 6, 7, and 8, which were morning, noon, and night. And we're going to play for you the opening of morning. So here is a little musical sunrise. Next, a piece by the Italian composer Antonio Vivaldi. Vivaldi was a priest, And he spent a good deal of his career working at an Italian orphanage for young women called the Pietà. If memory serves, it was in Florence, but I could be wrong about that. So violin scholars, help me out if I'm off on that, but I think that's true. And he wrote concerti for the young women who were there, who all studied music, and as a way of raising money for the charitable activities, and of course charitable activities at an orphanage, meaning things like food and clothing, Vivaldi would have the kids come out and perform, and people from all over Europe would make a special trip just to see these young women perform. They were that good. In fact, I think a couple of years ago in New York, there was kind of a replication of that orchestra, something called the Vivaldi Project. Today, we're going to hear Vivaldi's first concerto from the set of four known as the Four Seasons, Quattro Stagioni. In the first concerto, Spring, and somebody asked, why aren't you doing Fall? Well, we do these programs for school concerts, and if you know the history of the Fall Concerto, part of the descriptive music in that concerto is about a fellow who has a little bit too much to drink at a fall festival, and he's falling down drunk. And while Vivaldi does a wonderful job of portraying that, we thought perhaps that was not, in this day and age, material suitable for school children. But this is Sunday. It's a day of rest, kids, so you know, you're not to worry about that. And we'd like to present to you one of our newest members, will be our soloist for today. Her name is Lucia Kopsa. She comes to us from Switzerland and is a graduate student right now at UNC School of the Arts in Winston-Salem. So here is the concerto Spring by Antonio Vivaldi. I don't think Vivaldi contemplated the train when he wrote that piece in the 1600s. Next, we're going to play for you a piece from the 20th century based on a poem by the American poet J. Mitchell Pilcher. This is written by a composer named William Grant Still. Mr. Still grew up in Mississippi. He was born in Woodville, but after the Woodville Massacre, wisely his family moved to Arkansas, and he grew up in Little Rock. His father died at a young age, but he was very fortunate to have a very fine stepfather who really turned him on, first of all, to opera, but also to classical music. Although William Grant Still would live in several worlds, he moved to New York after going to school at Oberlin for a few years, and there he studied with the very, very avant-garde French composer Edgar Varese, but at the same time he played in some Broadway musicals like Shuffle Along with U.B. Blake and Noble Sissel. He also had one of the very first radio programs on CBS. In fact, I think the first two have been led by an African American. This is the final movement of four pieces in a work called Wood Notes. Here are Whippoorwill's Shoes. Back to Austria for a little bit. If you remember your world history, you'll remember that the city of Vienna, in addition to being, for many, many years, really the capital of so-called classical music. Musicians came from France, from Italy, of course from Germany, Brahms, Beethoven being two prime examples of that, really from all over that part of the world, because this was the center of fine music and really a very refined city, but not a city that wasn't subject to invasion from time to time. In those days, Vienna was a walled city, primarily because they were very concerned about invasion by the Ottomans, by the Turks, right? Some things never change. Okay. They were worried about invasion, but right outside the city was a beautiful woods, known as the Vienna Woods. And it was inspiration for many of these musical immigrants. And of course, everyone from Vienna from time to time would walk outside the walls and take advantage of the wonderful scenery there, which inspired one of the most beautiful of Johann Strauss, the Waltz King's pieces. Here is Tales from Vienna Woods. We couldn't bring you a zither today, but I think we have a pretty good substitute. Another composer who lived most of his adult life, well, certainly just about all of his adult life in Austria, was a fellow named Beethoven. Now, if you know about Beethoven's life, of course, you know about his deafness and all of that, but another important part of Beethoven's personality was he was a journalist. He journaled things. He wrote things down, except he hardly ever wrote words down, and if you tried to read them, it would be next to impossible. His handwriting was a lot like mine. When I broke my arm in the 7th grade, the teacher said, "Oh, go ahead, just use the other hand. It can't get any worse than it is already." And she was probably right about that. I'm equally bad, but ambidextrous, right? But Beethoven, rather than writing down words, wrote down musical ideas. And people would talk about observing Beethoven, you know, walking very quickly through the streets of Vienna, and he would stop and write something down. And certainly some of his greatest inspirations came from the time he was able to spend out of doors in the beautiful parks of Vienna, also in that very same woods that inspired the waltz by Johann Strauss. His 6th symphony is called the Pastoral, and the first movement has the subtitle, Happy Feelings Upon Returning to the Country, or excuse me, Happy Feelings Upon Awakening in the Country. So here is the first movement of Beethoven's 6th Symphony. course, not every aspect of nature is cheerful. Bees. Of course, we need bees. Absolutely. And in fact, you know, there's some evidence these days that we might be losing a lot of our honeybees. And that would be, of course, for obvious reasons, for any of us that remember anything about what sciences we had in high school, even those of us that are oldsters before the invention of things like physics and, you know, math and stuff like that. We know that bees are necessary to spread about pollen so that plants and fruits and agricultural products of all sorts of kinds can reproduce. But of course, they're not always pleasant. I know I'm one of those people that really pretty much needs to carry an EpiPen around. I'm not afraid of bees. I appreciate their role in nature, but they can be annoying. I think Rimsky-Korsakov, the Russian composer, must have sensed the same thing. Well, here's another critter that's essential for the survival of things. I think it's kind of hard to get excited about worms, unless you're a fisherman. Then a good night crawler can be of great value to you, especially late at night out on Lake Hickory. You might catch something big, you never know. And as people who like to fish, we're always hopeful. But Paul Linke, the German composer, he was a music hall composer. Poor fellow. Hitler loved his music. And he'd spent most of his time working in France, not so much even in Germany. But Hitler decided to make him the Reich Marshal of Music. And Linke was scared to death because he wrote nice little pieces like The Glowworm. He was no Richard Strauss or anything like that. Eventually, I think Linke found an excuse, aside from some excuses that happened during the war, like your disappearance. He managed to wangle his way out of it. And from all we can tell about his biography, he was certainly not a Nazi, a collaborator in any way. He was just a fellow who wrote some nice music hall pieces, one of which is Glowworm. This is the gross out part of the program. Let's see, we've had bees, we've had worms. How about spiders? Of course, that was the famous Italian dance, the tarantella, which some people say, legend will tell you, is a good way of driving out tarantulas. I don't know. My mother always told me that spiders were very useful, that while you might not like spiders, they always killed things that you probably liked even less, said to the fly. So at any rate, flies aren't much of a problem down here, but if you live in Indiana or Michigan, you grow to love and appreciate spiders. Believe me, we have a whole season devoted to black flies. Well, of course, all these animals in nature perform an important duty. We talked about bees doing the pollinating of a lot of things in our world. So when we do our school concerts, the next piece I usually play, actually after the bumblebee piece, is a piece, well, it's a setting of an old German melody, probably best known in the setting by Michael Pretorius. But I prefer the lovely Brahms setting of this piece. Last weekend, in fact, just a week ago today, we lost one of our former board presidents and a dear friend of mine, Joseph Hicks. Joe was, of course, president at Secor and a longtime employee of Secor and resident of this community, but he was a wonderful, wonderful supporter of this orchestra and music in general. Joe had a tradition. Every New Year's Eve, he'd been a high school bandsman. He would pull his trumpet out of the case and play the Kentucky Fight Song. I'm from Indiana. We're not going to do that. Yeah, he's from Indiana too. There's some places you can't go if you're a Hoosier, and that's one of them. But in honor of Joe, we'd like to do this beautiful setting by Brahms of Lo How a Rose Ere Blooming. Antonio Vivaldi was certainly not the only composer to write music about the seasons. Franz Joseph Haydn took time after he wrote The Creation to write a wonderful oratorio called The Seasons. Other composers as well, several Russian composers, perhaps most notably Tchaikovsky, who wrote a wonderful, fairly extended piano piece for every month of the year. And many of these pieces were orchestrated, some by Tchaikovsky, some by others. It's not too early. In fact, I've seen signs, I can't believe this. I mean, I've seen signs already telling us how many days are left before Christmas. I don't know about you. How about, whatever happened to like Halloween, or even Labor Day, but Halloween, Thanksgiving, wonderful holidays like that. But this is actually from November. And of course, around here in November, the weather's still pretty nice. Not maybe in Russia, in the Ukraine. So I think it would be appropriate maybe before intermission to play a little bit of music by Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Here is his Sleigh Ride. take 10 minutes, okay, because it's getting dark. You mind? Can you look at that? 10 minutes intermission, ladies and gentlemen. Wizards in Winter, the Trans-Siberian Orchestra. By the way, I don't know if there's a single Siberian in that orchestra. I think they're from Omaha, actually, to tell you the truth. But what they do is kind of cool if you're into that sort of thing. Wonderful lighting and some very colorful music. And here's some more colorful music. Let's return to the music of Johann Strauss. I know it's a little overcast, but let's tempt fate. Donner und Blitzen. Every concert should have at least one piece from a scary movie in it. So here's our piece from a scary movie. In fact, I really think the scariest movie maybe I've ever seen, the first one. After that, it's like, who cares? Eat some more people. I mean, you know, get real. It's not so interesting. Because, you know, it's kind of a, forgive me, but maybe the shark is a one-trick pony, you know, but a big pony. And of course, it was one of Steven Spielberg's early successes based on the novel by Peter Benchley. And I can tell you the novel, I've read the book. The book is scary too. Probably the scariest thing in the music is when they use no music, because that opening theme that we're going to play for you in just a moment comes back before every attack, except if you remember every attack but one. So let's give away some money. Money's good, somebody said. Yeah, sometimes it is. It's good. Especially when you didn't expect to win it and you win. You going to draw?
We have Olivia Jarman here, and she is going to pull a ticket out, and our pot, half, our 50-50 is $415. And the ticket holder is 010809. Again, that's 010809. Everybody got the winning ticket? All right.
Oh, way to go. It's a good tip. Yeah. Woohoo.
And our lucky winner is Jasilia Fryer, and she is an employee, of the wine shop, Hickory Wine Shop. Congratulations.
Thank you. Congratulations. And hey, wine shop people, that's no excuse not to tip her at the end of the night. Remember that. Well, we played Thunder and Lightning for you. Next, we're going to play for you an excerpt from the wonderful Overture to William Tell by Rossini, probably some of the best-known storm music of all time. In fact, it's been included in many motion pictures, including A Clockwork Orange, just a whole variety, from comedies to very serious movies to ultra-violent movies like Clockwork Orange. But it's also music that has perhaps been stolen from by other composers as much as any piece you will ever hear. The so-called cliches in Rossini's overture probably wouldn't have been cliches. It was really a brilliantly written piece. But it was so brilliant that everybody stole from him. So, you know, they assumed that it was really Rossini just writing these cliches, but it was not. It was probably 2 or 3 dozen movie composers and all this music for early radio and things like that when they used live music, and of course silent movies as well. I think you'll recognize this music. I also looked for a piece that might be evocative of the autumn season. And this is a piece that I'd heard many, many times, the theme from one of my favorite movies. If I'm not mistaken, this might have been Henry Fonda's last movie. If it wasn't, it was close to. And of course, it was a fabulous, fabulous cast. Henry Fonda, Jessica Tandy, I believe, was in that movie, wasn't she? Or no, excuse me, Katharine Hepburn. And of course, Jane Fonda, and whether you like Jane Fonda's politics or not, she is one fine, fine actress. And Jane Fonda said after doing On Golden Pond that it was really a chance for her to really spend some time with her father, because if you know of people in the entertainment business, you know when you get work, you take work. Even a great actor like Henry Fonda, who worked for many years in legitimate theater in New York and, of course, made many, many, many wonderful films. So we'd like to play for you a piece that I think is very evocative of fall, and also a piece about water that isn't scary, about rain and thunder and lightning and all of that business. Here's the theme from On Golden Pond. Now the main theme from a film that ruined Helen Hunt's career. You know, a very fine actress. What was she doing Twister for? I don't know, but it's a nice theme. And of course, it's an interesting film about those, I don't want to say crazy, yeah I do, crazy people that chase tornadoes. Because I know the local football team here and sports teams are called the Red Tornadoes, but thank goodness in the 23 going on 24 years I've lived here, I've yet to see a tornado in our part, at least this part of Catawba County, and I would kind of like that to stay the way it is. Go Red Tornadoes, but not real tornadoes. Because growing up in Indiana, you see the real thing, and of course it can be quite devastating and oddly quite selective. So the people that do research on tornadoes, crazy though they may be if they're driving around out in one, thank goodness for them, because they provide our meteorologists and scientists with some very good information. And they also provided Mark Mancino with the opportunity to write some wonderful music for the movie. Here's the main title theme. We'd like to close our program today with an arrangement of America the Beautiful. I hope you've enjoyed our program about nature. I mean, the wonderful thing about our country, really about our state, and I've always said this coming from having lived in 3 states with very similar topography, flat, that it's wonderful to come to a place like North Carolina where you have mountains, and you have wonderful beaches. And unlike California, you don't have severe earthquakes. Well, yet. But at any rate, it is a wonderful, wonderful place to live. We are blessed with glorious weather and very convenient geography. One of my other favorite states is Colorado. No, not for the reason you think. I haven't been since they changed the law. But I can tell you, there are some spectacular, spectacular mountains in that state. If you've never been there, go there to see the mountains. It's just breathtaking. A young teacher early on in the previous century, a first-year teacher of all things, was selected to spend a summer at Colorado College with fellow teachers, improving her training a bit. It was a rare, clear day, and you really could see, probably, like the song goes, you could see forever. and she started to write down a wonderful poem. Now, it would be many, many years before that poem and the tune that's associated with it found each other. In fact, the composer of the tune was already dead by the time she finished the 4 wonderful verses of America the Beautiful. If I'd been in Congress in 1931, I might have voted. You know, I love this song, and I hope you do too. Would you stand and sing it with us? We're gonna play a little introduction, and then I'm gonna ask you to sing along. Let's do the first verse, because we all know it. This is the encore, so I don't think we're tempting fate. Here's a march by John Philip Sousa. No, not the Stars and Stripes. The Thunderer.